Well, I call it a name tag day. I see some name tags out there, which means we have a group here. I think it's a teachers group, if I'm not mistaken. We've had those teachers retreats. I'm assuming this is one of these, so welcome. I'm Msgr Jim Bartylla. I'm the Vicar General for the Diocese, so I work for the Bishop. And you've caught us on a day where we're recording. I've been doing a series on the Eucharist as part of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops' Eucharistic Revival period, and so I've been giving a series. You're catching the end. This is the 9th of 9 months, so you kind of hit this at the end, kind of midstream or whatever, so bear with us. At the beginning of the months, I covered the real presence of Christ and transubstantiation. We covered the scriptural roots of the Mass, and then the sacrifice of the Mass, and today is Eucharistic miracles. And on these weekdays here, it's 2 parts, so this is part 1 of the 9th month, and next week will be part 2 of the 9th month. So kind of bear with us if it goes off script from the gospel, so to speak. Just to give a plug, we're recording these, so the other ones are on YouTube. If you get insomnia and you want to watch something on YouTube, I'm all available for you. So, Eucharistic miracles. It is best to be very diligent. It tends to be, probably many don't believe them, I suppose. And others might often get sometimes a little too interested in them, so to speak. And so there's always a balance. And to achieve this balance, I'm going to first talk about miracles in general, then about Eucharistic miracles, and then I'm going to go through one of them today, and then next week when we record I'll cover 2, and then do the theology about Eucharistic miracles. So that's a little teaser to tune in later. The miracles. St. Thomas Aquinas, our great medieval theologian, he covered this in the second part of the Summa Theologica, question 178, article 1. You can find anything in the Summa if you really put the time in. It's a gift to mankind. He first talks about miracles. He says, just as the knowledge which a man receives from God needs to be brought to the knowledge of others through the gift of tongues, which I don't have, and the grace of the Word, which we're doing, so too the Word uttered needs to be confirmed in order that it be rendered credible by the working of miracles. So he says, it is natural that man arrive at intelligible truth through its sensible effects. So just as man, through natural reason, is able to arrive at some knowledge of God through his natural effects, looking outside creation, for example, so man is brought to a certain degree of supernatural knowledge of the objects of faith by certain supernatural effects, which are called miracles. It's very logical. He equates the natural order with kind of the supernatural order. They run kind of parallel, so to speak. He then, in this other work of his, Summa Contra Gentiles, part 3, paragraph 1, Thomas is very good at distinguishing things. So he distinguishes 3 levels of miracles. The first is called the highest, events in which something is done by God which nature never could do. He gives examples, 2 bodies being coincident, covering the same space. The sun reversing its course, or standing still, or the sea opening up and offering a way for people to pass. Think of Moses and the Red Sea. Right? The more removed from the capacity of nature, the greater the miracle. That's the highest category of miracles. Second, events in which God does something which nature can do, but he does it in a different order. Examples of things that happen in nature, for animals to live, to see or walk, but the miracle is now the animal lives after death. Jesus raised somebody from the dead like Lazarus. To see after becoming blind, to cure the blind, or to walk after paralysis, right? That's things nature can't do, so when he cures the paralytic. The third category, the lowest, so to speak, events where God does what is usually done by the working of nature, but without the operation of the principles of nature. Examples include a person cured of a fever by divine power. So remember that Jesus cured Peter's mother-in-law with fever. Well, today's day and age, we could probably get that to work too, going to Walgreens, giving some aspirin, giving her some aspirin to cure the fever. Right? But he did it without the power. We're to reign independently in the workings of the principles of nature. So that's degrees. Eucharistic miracles, miracles regarding the Eucharist. They are rare, but they're occasional, and they're well documented. And the preface is, these are private revelation. If you leave here and you go, I don't believe what Msgr Bartylla said, that's okay, because these are items not of supernatural faith, but of natural faith. They're not dogmatic, they're private revelation, they're not public revelation, they're not dogmatically taught. You don't have to believe these. Many do, for good reason. You don't have to. So that's my little caveat. What are the types of Eucharistic miracles? Well, we have a young blessed, meaning a young teenager, I think, who died not so long ago. Blessed Carlo Acutis, a youth and a web designer, that tells you he's recent, web designer, who cataloged and documented the Eucharistic miracles through the centuries. He did the research. And he came up with the different types. So he's got mystical fasting, right? A person surviving on nothing but the Eucharist for 10 years, 20 years, or more, right? Spiritual or supernatural communion, receiving Holy Communion from angels. Look at the children of Fatima. They received Eucharist from an angel. The flesh, changing of the flesh and blood is the rarest type of Eucharistic miracle. It's when the Eucharistic host turns into physical flesh, or the Eucharistic blood turns into physical blood. Think of Santarem, Portugal, or Lanciano, Italy. Those would be examples. Santarem, I saw that, not at the time it occurred, but afterwards I saw the flesh in an reliquary. I was studying in Rome, and we had to do a canonical retreat for priesthood, so another seminary and I chose to go to Fatima. So we landed in Lisbon on the way with Santarem, and we stopped there to see this Eucharistic miracle on the way to Fatima. And they've got it in a kind of a reliquary, this Eucharist that turned flesh. More common is the bleeding host. Think Bolsena Orvieto. It's reasonably near Rome. I went up to see the corporal that had the blood stains on it at the Cathedral in Orvieto in Italy when I was a seminarian there. That happened in the 13th century. Whenever we have the Feast of Corpus Christi, usually in June-ish period, that's based on St. Thomas Aquinas talking to the Pope, and the Pope commissioning St. Thomas Aquinas to write the Mass and the hymns for Corpus Christi based on this miracle. Preservation. Consecrated hosts preserved for hundreds of years in normal conditions. Think Siena, Italy. That's the third of my examples. When I took a pilgrimage group there with, if any of you know Juan Landa, we did this years ago, we stopped at the Church of St. Francis of Assisi because they have kind of a monstrance full of hosts from the middle 18th century. There's a whole story behind it, but they've miraculously preserved. They're over their country, they don't decay. And the story is that popes go up and each pope goes up and consumes one of the hosts by tradition, and they're always as fresh as the hosts at St. Peter's. So preservation of consecrated hosts. The other consecrated hosts passing through a fire unscathed, stolen hosts vanishing and turning up in churches, levitating consecrated hosts. And maybe physical healings from being in the presence of the Eucharist. That's harder to prove because in the presence of the Eucharist, people could be praying, and it could be from the prayers that somebody is healed, and so we don't normally have, say, Eucharistic miracles have been proven to be able to do these healings. Okay, so there's Blessed Carlo Acutis' categories of Eucharistic miracles. I'll give you one example today, I think. There's three I'm going to give between today and next week. Lanciano, the oldest. The one in Buenos Aires, Argentina in the 1990s, which was when Pope Francis was Cardinal Bergoglio. He was the one who was the Archbishop at the time and worked through the investigation. There's one from 2006 in Tixla, Mexico. These would be just a smattering of them through the centuries, but those will be the ones I cover. Lanciano is the most famous. 700 AD, right? So it goes back 1,300 years plus. So circa 700 AD. Eucharistic host turns to flesh. Eucharistic blood turns to physical blood. This is east of Rome on the far eastern coast of Italy. You can go visit there. See this. It's typical, somewhat. A priest and monk doubted whether the Eucharist was the real presence of the body and blood of Christ, and he prayed for insight. The Lord seemed to grant his miracle. At the Mass later that he celebrated, the miracle occurred. The priest stopped a 6-centimeter diameter piece of human flesh. The host turned into a 6-centimeter diameter piece of human flesh. The blood coagulated, the precious blood, and the chalice coagulated into 5 globules, preserved. So there's a secondary miracle. Not only they converted to this, but then they're preserved, they don't decay. In the 16th century, they started scientific investigations of this with the Science and Time, and then the most recent investigations have been in 1970, 1971, and 1981. So what inquiring minds want to know? What do the scientific investigations? What were the results? Well, it's true blood, true flesh. Flesh is made of a heart muscle tissue that belongs to the human species. The blood type is AB, and the blood type is identical between the flesh and the blood. The flesh is from inside the heart, which would not have been able to be cut through in medieval medicine. The specimens, particularly the blood, are continuing miracles and not subject to putrefaction. No preservative substances are found. So that's Lanciano. I always recommend people just Google it. Just Google Lanciano. Eucharistic miracle Lanciano. Take a look at what you find. Everything's on the web these days. Maybe I'll just cover Buenos Aires. We'll give you a little bonus today. Buenos Aires, Argentina, because it deals with Pope Francis. 1990s, a couple of miracles in the same parish. Now, consecrated hosts were found where they should not have been found. Right? Host in a dirty corner, hosts left on a corporal white tabernacle. That's not a miracle, that's people just being lax with properly handling the Blessed Sacrament. So, these dirty hosts were collected, and what's common is if you have dirty hosts, nobody will consume. You put it in a dilution cup, and you let it dissolve in water. When it gets so dissolved, you pour it into the ground. That's the right way to handle it. Consecrated hosts dissolved in water for a natural breakdown, and then no longer would be the Eucharist. But the hosts turned into blood, so they had scientific investigations from that occurrence in the 1990s. The blood coming from the heart muscle tissue, again, but leukocytes, not normally found in the heart, were there. But they go to the site in the body of a wound of trauma. So it's a heart muscle under trauma with leukocytes in it. The blood seems to be coming then from a wounded heart. Leukocytes normally dissolve in a few minutes and are found only in a specimen that is alive. So the wounded heart shows the signs of being alive that came about from the signs here of Eucharistic disrespect. So that's part 1 of Eucharistic miracles. As we celebrate the Eucharist today, it's a good thing to reflect on in a retreat. The Lord of the universe would come under the form of bread in the most humble way to be consumed by you